already in the chat. Hello, everybody. How are you? And I always get surprised when it just pops up red. I'm back with Claire. We're here for our Storm of Swords reread. I think we only have about 3 weeks left, Claire.
Oh, cool.
Right. I think so. And then we might give you a bit of a break so you can get on top of your new work schedule. But yeah, we have about 3 weeks left. I think I said July the 14th is when we end, but I actually think it's the week before. I think it's July the 7th. July the 8th we end, I think. So hello to everybody in the chat. I see Ion is already there, and I've already been there a lot. So I've been busy making puns for the chapters this week.
I saw those, yeah.
And then I came back and they were all gone, so I had to put them up again because I'm narcissistic. So I really enjoyed. Oh, Bran is here. Hi, Bran. I really enjoyed the chapters this week because we go from the red wedding a couple of weeks ago to the purple wedding. Is that what they call it? The purple wedding, right?
Yeah, I didn't realise the time gap. It's literally just a few chapters. I thought it was a different book, to be honest.
It's because in the show it's different seasons, I think.
Oh, right.
I always think they're further apart.
But still, in the books, even like before they got to it in the TV show, it did feel like there was quite a gap in between both events. But it just feels like it's time-wise, it's just a matter of weeks, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is, because in the John chapter later, he's only really dreaming about Rob's death then, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like it's so the timeline is a little bit all over the place here, but it's probably only a few weeks. So I guess Edmund had a Christmas wedding because it's the new year, right? So So we had Tyrion 8 all the way to Arya 12, and next week we are reading from Tyrion 9 to Dany 6. We have very few Dany chapters so far, so that'll be 66 to 71. But yeah, this week we're starting on chapter 60 according to the wiki, and it's Tyrion 8, and it is Joffrey's death. Hello, AU, how are you? And so I wanted to talk to you first about the opening line here. It says that Tywin Lannister, he gifted like a more kind of awesome type of crown to the High Septon, and that's the first thing that Tyrion comments on. And for me, it's very symbolic of Tywin almost handing power to the Faith. This is the beginning of the Lannisters handing more power to the Faith. For me, that was the way. It's like, this is what's going to happen. And especially when we go into the Davos chapter, it's like certain leaders hand way too much power over to the powers that be. It won't be the Faith, obviously, it'll be the High Sparrow and all that kind of thing, but just that like idea that you can't be given religion that much. So, and just doesn't seem to be a reason to be given them that much. But
there was just to kind of counter that very slightly, there was that comment that Tywin made in the last like little clutch of chapters where we talked about him saying that we must put on a show, we must demonstrate the wealth and opulence and power of House Lannister. So, however, he's doing that with the Faith rather than for House Lannister, so it's a bit off. But I think to me it just felt like that part of that real opulent, we must put a big show on.
Maybe that's it.
Or it could be that there's just something about, to me, I've got a link there between the wall and all its different colours in the light and the description. It's particularly of the High Septon's crown with the light going through, and it's just, and of course the wall features quite heavily as well in John's chapter. So I don't know, there seems to be a bit of a link there for me. And the other thing, and I mean we'll get to it, but just thinking about the Faith and the Seven, Septon Stellador, is it, who's up at the wall, the Septon that's up at the wall?
I can't remember. I think so.
When everything's going on with the fight on the wall, he's basically drunk and useless. He's like John wants to just like knock him out because he's just being really irritating, and he's chanting, and the kind of prayers that it's just like it's counterproductive. You know, John, I think, says that he wants to throw him off the wall at one point, and it just made me feel like that when things are happening at the wall and old gods and magic is stirring, the last place you want to be if you're a Septon is at the wall, because the faith has nothing. You know, it's just it really felt like there was somebody there that was completely out of place, and the fact that he was described as just drunk and useless and irritating was like, yeah, I can kind of see that. So yeah, maybe that was why the crown was
kind of like when we get to the Davos chapter with the Maester deliberately putting himself in harm's way. But yeah, so Tyrion, anyway, it's a lot of description. Tyrion at the beginning of this, he makes a really good comment about Joff, and the crown rested easily on his golden curls. That's the total opposite to Robb, whose crown never rested easily on his head. There's a lot of references here from Tyrion to Joffrey dying throughout before it happens. But he's obsessed with Joffrey and the cat's paw here. For some reason, I don't know why it comes up here. Is it just for us to be drawn to Joffrey being guilty and it's okay if he dies because remember he's a shit? It's very
possibly. It could be.
I couldn't, or else it's just like conspiracy, and there's going to be more conspiracy around Joffrey.
Yeah,
like blind you with the cat's paw, ignore Olenna messing with the hairnet.
Could be, yeah. Bait and switch, yeah.
I was watching Grey Area. She had a video about Littlefinger and Guestright, and if the Starks have broken Guestright in the show by killing Littlefinger, and she mentioned Olenna breaking Guestright at Joffrey's wedding by killing him.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, she does say to Tyrion and Sansa that she'll only eat a couple of mouthfuls, if even that. So we don't even know if she ate.
Yeah.
She may have, you know, it already seems as if she was planning this kind of thing. I'm not breaking Guestright. Or it was a bit like, it just stuck out to me as I was reading it, having seen Grey Area's video. And also she makes this hysterical kind of charade when he's dying. Get the boy some help, protect the king.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's great. I love Olenna. I really love her. And we have Sir Loras. Why did I write down? Will Sir Loras be a Kingslayer? Oh, sorry. Yes, willing Sir Loras to be a Kingslayer. There's says about Marjorie that Joffrey,
who will protect her from Joff. Yeah.
And he's always willing, especially with the Jaime chapter later. We'll get that Kingslayer, Kinslayer.
Yeah.
Things. But anyway, I've talked for long enough. What did you make of this chapter?
Well, I wanted to ask you about the cloak, the wedding cloak that's wrapped around the bride. There potentially could have been two Baratheon cloaks here. There could have been Joff's cloak, should have really, legitimately, in the eyes of, well, legally anyway, it should have been his father's cloak that he was wrapping around Marjorie's shoulders at the wedding. But it wasn't. It was a Lannister cloak. And equally, not even Marjorie wore a Baratheon cloak, which she should have done because she was married to Renly.
That's right, yeah.
She brought the Tyrell cloak and Joffrey brought the Lannister cloak. So she takes a Tyrell cloak off as if the Baratheons never existed in her, and I think later on somebody says something about...
Well, they sing a song about Renly as well, don't they? And
yeah. But Marjorie, I can assure you, Marjorie is still she's still like a virgin, or a maiden, But I just thought that was a bit shocking that on public display there's no Baratheon representation of this wedding when they both had links to Baratheons.
I think he had a stag on his doublet. I think that was the only
there was like a cursory kind of nod towards, there's a bit of both from his point of view, but she just went, Renly who?
Yeah. And maybe Tywin had got wind of like Renly and Littlefinger's plan to actually wed Marjorie to Robert, and that he didn't want any kind of Baratheon influence.
I get the impression that Tywin is complicit in all of this.
I think Tywin is definitely complicit in Joffrey's murder. At the very least, he knows about it. The very least, he knows about it and just lets it happen. But I really do think I don't know. I feel like he knows about it and just lets it happen. I don't think he's part of a conspiracy. It would be brilliant if it turns out that he is, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is.
It's just that in this chapter, you don't get to hear from Tywin where he is, where he's sat, what's going on. You don't hear a peep at all until right at the end of the chapter when the pie arrives, and he makes a big thing about announcing that the pie has arrived. And I just think and then after the choking and everything, and Joffrey dying, and Cersei, screaming and crying, and he's just stood there saying, he's gone, Cersei, he's gone.
As if he's annoyed as well. He's like, come on.
Yeah, yes. There's just
I know it's been 10 seconds, he's dead already.
Yeah, but there really is something.
It's your grandson.
I get the impression from the writing in this chapter and just how he appears that there's definitely something complicit. I know they kind of alluded to that, didn't they, in the TV show?
I definitely do, and also there's and he is Joffrey's only grandfather. I mean, come on, show a bit of compassion. It's a very odd reaction that he has at the end of the chapter, and it's very suspicious. We also get a great description of Sansa from Tyrion's point of view, because just about the grief that she's going through, and there's quite an interesting relationship developing between them. And he says he could have loved her when everybody else is laughing at the dwarves and she doesn't say anything. He could have loved her in that moment, but he knows that's just grief. It's not for him, it's grief. And but Tyrion doesn't come across well in this chapter, it has to be said.
No.
He's very just full of self-pity, and like I sometimes you just want him to shut up.
All right, just checking that.
Let's say hello to the chat actually. Hi Jules and Barbara. Jules says, indeed the power of the Lannister and showing everyone who's really in charge. And Barbara says, good point about the cloak, Clare. Threadbare. Joanna would have worn a Lannister cloak just to be wrapped in another Lannister cloak. Yeah. It's as I said, it's an interesting chapter from the point of view of Tyrion. This is the self-loathing, self-pitying Tyrion that I come to hate as we go on from here. Which, I mean, he still has his great moments from here on in. But, of course, we will know later. This is also our first time to see Penny. She's one of the dwarves in this mock thing. We'll also find out more about that in Sansa's chapter from Littlefinger. We also meet Lancel again in this chapter, and I completely forgot about the description of Lancel here, that his hair had turned to white, and he basically sounds like an old man.
Yeah, there's some Theon comparisons there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just the tremendous shock of the black water and the injury and everything. But yeah, the big thing then obviously is the food and the songs, and the songs go on. Another thing that Olenna Tyrell orchestrates is the playing of the reins of Castamere as Joffrey is dying, which I hadn't noticed before, which is so good. She's great. She's so great. Yeah, I think that's everything that I have. Oh well, just Tyrion saying what I've always said, that he's never made a friend or made anyone smile without his gold, and he recognizes the fear himself, and he won't ever be able to do that again because he won't have any gold. But he doesn't at the moment anyway. He might later, but yeah. But yeah, that's all I have for now, I think. Do you have anything else from this chapter?
There's a couple of things that jumped out to me in this chapter. Shay constantly pushing her luck about being asked to attend the ceremony and be there and just be part of the action, or at least witnessing what's going on. I can't help but think she is reporting back to somebody that's outside of King's Landing. Also, that I'd completely forgotten that Tyrion had suggested that him and Sansa after the wedding visit Casterly Rock. So, you know, like Tyrion and Sansa are on tour kind of thing. Like, I wonder how they would have been together outside of King's Landing, just having like had the opportunity to just be able to spend a bit of time together. I don't know. However, he is way off sometimes, Tyrion. He is quite clever, but sometimes he just gets things completely way off. Like when he's looking at Sansa and he sees that there's something about Sansa, by the way, and we'll pick this up in the Sansa chapter. There's something not quite right about how she's behaving. And it's very easy to say that she's just dumbstruck with grief completely because of what happened at the Red Wedding. But there's also, and you could make an argument that she's been drugged almost. You know, she seems to be in this just like not quite with it. She's not. She's like away somewhere else. She's not eating really that much, and doesn't really seem to be sort of paying attention to things that are going on. And during this time, Tyrion kind of looks at her and thinks when the ceremony, I think, is taking place, or maybe it's at the wedding feast, but it's when Joffrey and Marjorie there's a focus on them, and Tyrion thinks he wonders if Sansa is sad that she's not marrying, you know, that she's not marrying Joff, and then it's Marjorie marrying Joff, and it's like that. How could you, that's like, how could you think that, Tyrion, given what's just happened?
I think it's because he thinks he's such a monster. I mean, he feels like such a monster. He's going to allow them to turn him into a monster as well. He doesn't really put up much of a fight at this stage to defend himself. But you know, with all the confusion, that's totally understandable. But we also have to remember that Sansa also finds out in this chapter what happened to Ice. And what happens to Ice is devastating. It's for me, it's as devastating as a direwolf dying. I know it shouldn't be, I know it's an object, but it is. What happens to Ice is terrible for Sansa. And so that's another grief. It's like, oh, this really is like Winterfell has been burnt down, Ice is gone, the whole family are gone. There really isn't any way back. She can't even claim the family heirloom because it's gone. So it's just like, I think it's all kind of hitting her. And yeah, as we get into her chapter, hey Connie, as we get into her chapter, we'll see a little bit more from her point of view. But she does, you're right, maybe she is being drugged. She does look, there's something not right, obviously, but Tyrion notices that she's not eating and that she's just distracted. She seems distracted. But I don't know whether there's any, I haven't gone back actually to double check if there's any reference to her eating anything at all, just in reference to your comment earlier about guest rights. I don't know if she eats any of the food at the wedding, but there is a theory
from James and LaDonna years ago that it was Sansa that killed Joffrey, and that it was kind of like this wolf persona that takes over. And I don't know. I mean, we'll get into it in the next chapter, but there's just something not quite right about Sansa, and I don't know whether it's just grief.
I think there is something, yeah, and yeah, I think I have a note of what you're talking about as well in the next chapter. Her intuition goes beyond intuition, for sure.
The other thing,
sorry, no, before you say that, maybe the chat could let us know if they thought this was a good enough death for Joffrey. I'm interested to know what they think.
Yeah.
So what was the other thing that you were going to say?
I mean, I remember reading this and being like, woohoo, and feeling terrible that I'd been celebrating the death of a child.
13-year-old.
But it is Joffrey, yeah. The singers, the songs that are sung at the wedding. So there's a singer called Gallion, who sings about the Dark Lord and his crows. There's also a song about two lovers dying in Valyria. Very poetic. And Tyrion says to Sansa, never believe anything that you hear in a song, which makes me think, believe everything that you hear in song. I mean, the interpretation might be slightly different, a little bit like Mel looking into the flames, but it's one of the really solid ways of preserving history is through song. And of course the whole series is a song of ice and fire. But then we get the dwarves. I just want to say, in the TV show, I know they did this completely differently, but in the TV show, one of the dwarves, he actually played Stannis. He's a friend of my sister.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she knows it from that. He does quite a lot of it, plays and pantomimes and seasonal stuff like that, but when she lived in Surrey, she knew him quite well. He's quite a prolific drinker. But he played Stannis in the TV show.
I actually loved this in the TV show. I thought they did a good job.
They did a good job of the Purple Wedding, definitely.
I actually have a connection to Joff's wedding as well. When we went to see the location where this was shot in Malta, or was it Croatia? Malta, Croatia. They use this kind of bit of a park area just outside the city, and they put down lots of red pebbles for the wedding scene. And they had to take them all back up, but they couldn't get everything back up. So now they just get any tours that go there. People just take away red pebbles from the souvenir. So we have some inside. That's my only connection. I don't know anybody, but I have red pebbles.
You actually
died on my pebbles. That sounds weird. Everybody thinks he deserved it. I think he deserved it too. I really like Jack Leeson. He always comes to my home city for the Comedy Cat Laughs Festival in June. So
he's great. He is
so mild-mannered in real life as well.
He's lovely. He seems I've seen interviews with him and he seems like a really decent lad. Hard
to break away from that character. I think he's into kind of avant-garde type performance stuff. I think that's what
but it's kind of experimental stuff.
So shall we move on to Sansa? And I apologize, I should have turned off my phone.
There is something about there was the imagery of Joff dying and tearing at his throat because he couldn't, he's like gasping for air and he's trying to speak and he's like pointing over at Tyrion. But that like literally tearing at his throat to get some air.
Yes.
It reminded me of the very last scene that we get with Cat.
Also, he knows he's dying.
Breaking a face. Yeah.
So the Sansa 5 opens interestingly enough with her whispering to the trees, "Joffrey is dead," and I thought that was interesting. Whispering to the trees. and it's all she starts crying, and she doesn't know why she's crying. She doesn't think it's because she's sorry for Joff or anything like that, but I think it's because she's finally allowed to grieve. I think she's been holding it all in. I think it's a release for her. And yeah, she comments on Marjorie. Somebody said, or no, she comments on Marjorie twice. Or so no, is it late? Is who says it? Is it maybe it's Tandy says it? Twice wed, twice widowed. And it made me wonder, well, things don't happen in twos, things happen in threes. So I wonder, will she die before Tommen? Or sorry, will Tommen die before her in the books? Before Marjorie? That sounds better.
Yeah.
Thrice wed, thrice widowed.
I mean, in the TV show, it's pretty much on the same day, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder if would there be some sort of
it just it would be very fitting, definitely.
Yeah. So we talked a bit about Sansa's intuition, and she very quickly realizes it was the hairnet, it was the black amethyst, and it's pretty much confirmed in this chapter, obviously. But it's almost like she's instantly tapping into her starkness, the whispering to the trees, the grieving, the ivory skin, that kind of pale northern look. So everything seems to be instantly like, I'm back. This is it. So I really enjoyed this chapter, including the fact that she's scared to leave the Red Keep because she doesn't know what's waiting for her, and she's been there a couple of years now at this stage, right? So she's bound to be a little bit of Stockholm syndrome.
There's that quote where she talks about her skin going from porcelain to ivory to steel. And I think that probably is her coming out of the situation that she's been in for the last couple of years. And she's toughening up, and she knows that she needs to toughen up, so she's kind of channeling her inner Stark. But there is, I don't know, I think there may be something in like something kind of took over, like Stark lady, the werewolf lady, the werewolf, the direwolf lady, and and just her sort of Stark essence kind of taking the wheel somehow in this chapter. And she even describes herself as being numb and dreamy. So she's in this like trance almost, and it just I think she might have been drugged. LaDonna did a whole big long video about how she would like touch the hairnet, and that if she touched her face or if she anything like that she could have it could have put her into some sort of trance or whatever that then manifests in this kind of self-preservation. It
would make sense why a very drunk Dantas gets down the steps much quicker than she does.
There's something there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what people think in the chat about Sansa's culpability in terms of Joffrey's death. It does look like it was a very straightforward. The hairnet and the black amethyst is the murder weapon, if you like. And like you say, Sansa does figure this out, but I think that's a little bit too obvious, and there's definitely more to it than just the Queen of Thorns fiddling with the hairnet and loosening it, and there just seems to be something more.
Do you want some tinfoil?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, tinfoil. This is where George R. R. Martin has ruined your mind. There's two references to Dawn and to her potential death. They're actually near enough to each other. It says if she stopped, she would never start again, and Dawn would find her still clinging to a cliff, frozen in fear. And then the other one is the eastern sky was vague with the first hint of dawn, when Sansa finally saw a ghostly shape in the darkness ahead. So I just thought that interesting with Dawn, especially if that's something that Jon ends up having. So just the idea of frozen with fear, ghostly figure, maybe Dawn. So yeah, bit of tinfoil for you. I'm not sure if it means anything. Probably just the sun rising. But yeah, I'm interested in the ways in which she refers to Tyrion. It goes from Tyrion to husband to Tyrion to dwarf husband to man to imp, and then back to Tyrion. And she also thinks about would she actually prefer be in bed with him? Like she finds it weird she's gonna have to sleep without him.
Yeah, she has it. She wants to. She wants to think to herself about, like, she hesitates about whether or not sharing a bed again with Tyrion is a good thing or a bad thing. It's like there's something she can't quite make. She hesitates when she thinks, oh, thank God I don't have to sleep with the dwarf anymore. And it's like, yeah, there's something there.
Yeah, and also the way Littlefinger kills Dantas is very similar to how Robb is taken down the crossbow, and it's just like, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, just in case this traumatized girl isn't traumatized enough for you to manipulate her, you're going to shoot Dantas. Now I know Sansa probably doesn't know how they died, but still, it's like, this is her knight, her savior. And yeah, he's so evil. Yeah, so we I also have another kind of, this is a stretch, I know that, but in the next chapter with Jaime, we find out that King's Landing smells of smoke and shit, and she's down by the sea. It's just, there's also a Azor Ahai kind of imagery involved in her escape here, and almost her rebirth as Stark away from the Lannister name. So Sansa Lannister is going, and Sansa Stark is being reborn here. I know she won't be Sansa Stark for a while, but I feel like there's a Azor Ahai type imagery around this as well for her. So is there anything else then with Sansa 5?
Just a couple of things from Littlefinger. There's a quote where he says, "In the Godswood, nothing can hide," which I thought was quite interesting. And always keep your enemies confused. Remember this later when you play the Game of Thrones. They obviously lifted that line from that part of the book and massively embellished that into what happened with Littlefinger in the TV show, where he was doing all those, like before they killed him in the TV show, and he was doing all those weird monologues with Sansa in the yard at Winterfell about keeping everyone confused, and in your mind, make sure that you do this in your mind, it's all in your mind, and blah blah blah. So they've lifted that from there. And he's saying that, don't, you're safe with me and going home. Well, of course, he doesn't mean to her home. And he also tells her, disgustingly, that apparently, well, from his point of view anyway, that he's the one that took her mother's virginity, and by a twist of fate, you could have actually been my daughter. So that's laying everything up for her being Elaine later on. But
and then she definitely wouldn't be more beautiful than Marjorie, as Tyrion comments. It is funny that he has that comment about the Godswood. I have always kind of thought that Littlefinger may have a touch of some sort of green seer power, of some sort of power of visions. So he might already be into that, especially if Sweet Robin is his child. There certainly seems to be something about that. His connection with the Weirwoods. This isn't the first time that we'll see it. We'll see it again, and he seems to know that there's some sort of ancient power there. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if it'll ever be confirmed or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. So
Oh, yeah, Connie said that the reference to Dawn, that another one when Septa Mordain told Sansa on the King's Road, your father left at dawn with the others. Yeah. Well spotted. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. So maybe I'm not being a tinfoiled hack tonight. So Jules also says the cloak she takes. Yes, of course. We didn't talk about that. I love the theory of being Sandor's, that she's dyed green. Yeah, of course. That's a long-held fan theory. I know Radio Westeros did a great podcast on Sansa, and they spent a bit of time on that. There are a lot of references to Sansa and needlework and sewing and all that kind of thing. And AU says, well, he doesn't agree that Sansa had anything to do with the murders. And Bran just says, poor Dantas. Poor Dantas. R.I.P. He went out as a knight, though. I mean, he would have just drank himself to death.
It didn't help.
I don't want to say that that's not his choice to do that, but let's not pretend he was going to have. But anyway, poor old Dantas, So,
if you're a knight, don't join the Navy.
Oh, yeah. So we have Jaime 7. The grossest scene.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Jaime shows up, and I mean, he knows about Joffrey. He hears about Dany, and he mourns for Cersei. Doesn't give a shit about Joffrey, right?
Well, it's interesting because we're completely led to believe on the surface as readers, and I'm by no means a massive Jaime fan. I find Jaime's chapters fascinating, but I'm not a huge Jaime redemption arc, blah blah blah, whatever. I just take Jaime as he comes, to be honest with you, and some of his chapters are quite interesting. What I found interesting in this was we're slapped in the face with he doesn't give a shit about Joffrey. He's just interested in what he can do for Cersei, and she needs me, and I need to comfort her. But at the same time, it doesn't surprise me that he feels that way, whether his motivations are good or bad or whatever. It doesn't surprise me that he feels that way, because he was never ever allowed to bond with any of his children. It was just that she wouldn't allow it. She set the rules, she set the pace, she was in control of the whole thing. And he says somewhere in this chapter, if Cersei wants another baby, I'll give her another baby. But this time, I will hold the baby. I will hold the baby. Everyone will know. So it's not that he's a bad father necessarily. It's just that he's never been given the opportunity to really be a real father. And he says, Robert's welcome to him. Let him. Well, he would have to. You'd have to. In reality, you would really have to harden your emotions to be able to deal with that.
I feel like Jaime he's the butt of all their jokes as well. As much as Tyrion was obviously despised by Cersei and Tywin, they still have, in their own weird way, a real genuine respect for how intelligent Tyrion is, and how much he works against his disability or whatever, pushes against it and tried to build himself up. But with Jaime, I don't know if it's resentment on their part that he's been handed everything, and especially Tywin's part, that he's been handed everything and just refuses it. But also, it's just this, he's not the brightest. He's very impetuous. He thinks with his heart first. And this is another example of it. If she's not going to let me near the kid, then fine. I don't want anything to do with the kid. He's getting her breasts anyway. I hate him. It's like,
it's like jealous of the children. Yeah, very, very weird.
Anyway, you got your own back, Jaime. You just fucked his mom beside the corpse. So, so weird. Anyway, before all of this happens, he talks about King's Landing smelling of death and treachery. He knows the roads very well, and he's kind of he's enjoying not being recognized. And it made me think, you know, the theory that I actually do kind of buy into is that Gendry is Robert and Cersei's child, and that it could have been Jaime that helped to hide the child. Although I'm not entirely sure if it was Jaime, because in this chapter, this seems to be the very first time he's gone through King's Landing without being recognized. So it suggests to me that it couldn't be him to have, you know, hit the child. It would have had to have been someone else. It would have been very hard for him to disguise himself. But I don't know. But he mentioned.
I'm just like, would she even let him know if that happened?
Maybe not.
If she got pregnant by Robert, she probably want to keep it from him.
And it doesn't look like he's into foreplay, so he may not have noticed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, and he could have been out on a mission. We don't know if he was always in King's Landing when Cersei was first married to Robert. I don't think we know for sure. Anyway, he thinks about having sex with Cersei, but immediately goes and looks for Brienne. Like immediately goes back to look for her. And starts, you know, kind of teasing her in his mind, just kind of like, I don't know. Brienne doesn't like the fact that they've dressed her up, they've taken her armor and stuff like that. But and then we have this scene which I completely forgot about, between Brienne and Loras in King's Landing. Completely forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
And the quip that Jaime makes about
so far up your arse, even Renly won't find it.
Yeah. So I was like, everybody knows obviously about Renly and Loras. Yeah, and he thinks that you know, as he's going around the city, it looks like nobody really gives a shit that Joffrey died. Like the ordinary people don't give a shit. Like
not really.
They never do. Like they rarely give a shit who wins the king, right? He also, and it probably stuck out to me more because of the prequel announcement, but he also comments on the Age of Heroes and how Bolton's flayed Starks for cloaks. In this chapter, he's obviously pretending to be a Bolton man. And the other thing that stuck out to me is the fact that now they have a new Kingslayer with Tyrion, and his brother has become a Kingslayer and a Kinslayer, and Jaime thinks Tyrion can't have done this. Tyrion would not have killed my son.
Well, and to the extent that Cersei just commands him to kill Tyrion.
Also, why is Cersei questioning all of Sansa's handmaids? Like what? Like why does she have to do that? Like why isn't it a Tywin or a Kingsguard or something? Like she's really, this is
micromanaging.
It's her excuse to, I think it's her excuse to be sadistic as well, and to make somebody suffer because she's just seen her kids suffer. So it's understandable, I guess. He comments on the fact that all the misunderstanding that they've been suffering stems from Ares. Everything stems from Ares. It's kind of true, I guess, right? Everything comes from Ares.
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing. And then the chapter ends with Tywin trying to convince Jaime to marry Marjorie and take back Casterly Rock. And when he won't, he says, "You are not my son," which is.
He's very forceful, actually, Jaime. Here, he just like in the concept of him being the Lord of Casterly Rock. Just he will not entertain at all. He's got. Is it because he wants to be near Cersei that he's demanding that he goes back? You know, that he's the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. That's his place. That's his position. And Tywin's like, look, we can do whatever we want here. You know, we can get you out of the Kingsguard. You need to go to Casterly Rock. You need to marry. You know, Tywin's doing his typical control freak, manipulating everyone, putting all the chess pieces in the right places. And it's at this point, I don't know whether this has ever happened before, actually, where Jaime's turned around and said to his father, no, that is not happening, to the point where there's this weird, awkward silence between them. And then the line, "You're not my son," which is like, you know, is he, what, you know, is what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, you get the sense through in this chapter through Jaime's eyes that just everything has changed at King's Landing. Not just the, you know, the smell of the place is familiar, but apart from that, everything has changed. All the dynamics have changed, all the power positions have changed. And he just wants Cersei. He just wants to comfort Cersei. He wants to be back in his place at the King's Guard.
He's quite different to
yeah.
Tyrion, isn't he? Like Tyrion, and Tyrion is in a worse position for sure, but Jaime just owns. I haven't got a hand. I might as well tell you now. I don't have a hand. I'll be fine. I have a left hand. It's fine. And I think, you know, losing your hand is, maybe it isn't. Is it worse than losing your nose? In the chat, would you prefer lose a nose or lose a hand? I think nose, especially now because you can get those fake ones. Apparently, a lot of people used to lose their nose because of syphilis.
Yeah.
So fake noses
like a
were
black
a big
nose,
thing.
a wooden nose. Yeah.
A wooden nose, silver, all that kind of thing. Yeah. Connie says, Bran says he wants in on one of our discussion one of these days. We can arrange future. Connie says, oh yeah, the Boltons want to be Starks, like wearing their skin like the bug guy from Men in Black would fool anybody. Yeah, I love that. That's a great analogy. I wonder, is there some misinterpretation of that, wearing a skin, you know?
Or just all I can picture now is Iron Throne in a Darth Vader mask.
All I can picture is AU without a nose. So Ian says nose and get the Darth Vader mask. Yeah, I suppose. But with the I guess you see in our world the hand is kind of cool because you get a cool robotic hand, maybe. But there'd have to be good nails on it, Claire, for us.
Yeah, yeah.
The Cindy hand, we won't care. So. Yeah, was there anything with Jaime 7 then? Anything else that, apart from him sleeping with, or having, I wouldn't say sleeping.
The TV show, this was quite controversial in the TV show, that the way they filmed it, it was more of a rape. He was you know, he completely dominated her.
I don't think it is here though.
No, totally not. The dynamics are she wants it as much as he does, but just not there, not in that place. And only because she's worried about them being caught. And which has been the feature, obviously, since this began. He seems to have gone along with that to an extent. And now he just doesn't give a shit. Like, what does it matter?
And he's such, oh God, he's such a sad sap, because it's now, this is the first time that we, without Bran 1 from a Game of Thrones way back, was the first time we saw them having sex. So this is just the second time we've seen them have sex. And this time it's way more, it's really gross. Obviously it's going to be gross anyway, it's a brother and sister, but it's just really gross, everything about it. She has her period. She gets off on the fact, she's saying, my brother, and it's like, ugh, it's so weird. Like, it's no wonder that Tyrion has also had those thoughts about, well, he will later, about, you know, raping his sister or whatever. It's like, maybe he caught them once, maybe he overheard them. It's like, if she's getting off on that, that's gonna like really mess up your idea of what women want out of sex. So it's just a weird scene, and she pushes him away at the end, all right, and screams at him to go. And you can kind of see it from both their point of views. She obviously knows he doesn't give a shit about Joffrey, but then he realizes she's disgusted by the hand. Both things are true, and they're both messed up. But so then we have Davos 6. Great chapter. I love this chapter. It was very different from everything for me this week. It was very different. Well, this was the last John chapter and this John chapter are quite similar, but Davos 6, we have it starts with the worshipping of R'hllor, and Stannis obviously clanning with some other loyal men. to get Edric Storm out of there quickly, because they have heard about Joffrey, and they need to get Edric out of there. Edric is so cute. By the way,
I know.
in the book, when they go to get Edric, he's doing his sums, which is like what we'd say at primary school, right? Doing your maths, doing your sums. And when we met George R. R. Martin a couple of years ago, that was the question that Ivan asked him. Ivan went first and asked George if he was any good at maths at school. And George, clearly nobody had ever asked him this question before, so he got completely distracted by that question. And long after Ivan was even off the stage or whatever, and it was my turn next, and I like completely fangirled, but obviously he was still distracted and looking after Ivan going, and he said he wasn't. But like, it's just like, you asked him, clearly nobody's ever asked him that question. It was pointless me saying it. I was talking to his niece or something, so it was fine. But that was the question he asked. So maybe he was a bit like Edric, not paying attention, or maybe paying attention. He preferred history like Edric.
Yeah.
So, so we have
with Roy de Treese actually doing the audio. It is a real treat actually listening to the audio this time around. I know it's a little bit slower for me, but I'm able to like multitask at the same time while I'm listening to the chapters. And I just, whatever it was I was doing, I stopped when we got to this bit. And just the way Roy de Treese said, did I displease King Stannis? I never meant to. And it's like, oh, poor Edric. Oh,
Edric is lovely. And the first thing he says is, I'm not going down there. I'm not worshipping that guy.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm sticking with my, I love that. For such a young kid, it's like, I know my mind. I'm sticking with my dad's gods. It's really great. Do you think Stannis is secretly happy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's something. There's always like a real gothic feel to Davos's chapters.
Yeah, that's great.
There's the atmosphere, the dialogue, the fact that you expect Stannis to like be screaming and shouting, and there's just this. He just kind of swoops over to the window and kind of looks at, it just, everything is so haunting and gothic. And the only thing that really pulls you out of this weird atmosphere that's going on between Davos and Stannis is Mel. And so she's determined that, okay, look, the leech thing, we've now got 3 dead kings. You need to wake this stone dragon. I can give you the realm if you give me this boy. We need to. So he's kind of, I mean, there's this bit at the end of the chapter where Stannis says, I never asked for this crown, I must do my duty, sacrificing, just these words, because I've just put Shireen and then an unhappy face.
There's so many references to Shireen. Oh god,
Shireen is sacrifice is never easy, or it is no true sacrifice.
And even it opens, the chapter says Shireen looks black in the firelight.
Yeah.
Horrible. And then Edric says, can I bring Shireen, or is Shireen coming? And I need to say, I'm like, no. I really, we don't know for sure if that's going to happen in the books, do we?
We don't. And I was fiercely, like, when it was in the TV show, I was like, no, this isn't going to happen. I'm like,
a huge Tony Teflon lost the plot.
Happened. Understandably so. And it just, but reading that line from Stannis in this chapter, sacrifice is never easy, or we wouldn't call it a sacrifice.
Yeah. But even Davos, because this chapter is about sacrifice, Davos is potentially sacrificing his life to Maester, and they're very aware of that. And Davos says, if I get through tonight, I'm going home. And which kind of doesn't make sense with the plan he has at the end of this chapter, the letter he's about to read to Stannis. I mean, there's no real option for him to go home, I don't think. But yeah, there's other references to cats in this chapter and stars. So we have Mel saying that R'hllor is the sun in the day and the stars at night. You know, the warmth of the stars and the warmth of the sun. And then later, Davos says that the stars are smugglers' stars. They show this, they're for the smugglers. The stars are for the smugglers. And then with the cat, we have Mel saying that, I think is it Florent looking into the pretending to be getting visions, and Mel says when the cat looks in the flames, they'll see red mice or whatever it is. And then we also have the story about Joffrey cutting open the pregnant cat because he wanted a kitten. Which is like, God. So it's, we also have Stannis not wanting to hear Edric's name, not even, doesn't want to hear it at all. So yeah, I guess it is pretty much, it's pretty much true that he's happy about that.
I mean, there's also in this chapter, Davos is kind of looking around him as he's going to meet with Stannis, and he notices again, it's a couple of times that Davos has referenced the stone dragons, and with that he kind of thinks about the Targaryens and like how this is, you know, this is a dragon's place. And I don't think it's just the backdrop of Dragonstone that makes these chapters gothic. I think it's Stannis. Is just he brings this atmosphere with him.
Because Mel is almost comical at times.
Yes,
she's so over the top.
But there's something. He's not sinister, Stannis. It's almost like he's just weary.
Emo.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Mel says to him when she's trying to get him to give her Edric, she says, "You are the one who must stand against the other." The other way the captain up. The one whose coming was prophesied 5,000 years ago. The red Cornish was your herald. You are the prince that was promised, and if you fail, the world fails with you. Mel went to him, her red lips parted, her ruby throbbing. "Give me the boy," she whispered, "and I will give you your kingdom." Is the ruby are part of her powers persuasive powers as well?
Yeah, it's a sexual thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But the throbbing ruby, and why isn't it working on Stannis anymore? Because it doesn't seem to be really working on him or anybody else. Because Davos comments that there are less people night, and there'll be less people tomorrow night. People are losing interest in R'hllor. Is it because Mel is getting the vision wrong? Is she getting the prophecy wrong? Is that why her powers are kind of dwindling?
I think there's probably a lot of resentment around Blackwater as well. She thinks she should have been there. They would have won. Stannis feels that she probably would have helped them with her magic if she'd have been there, but he couldn't have that. He needed to be the victor in that situation. So I think there's probably a lot of posturing, like about, like, you know, we could have won that if he'd have done it my way, but he's kind of like, no, you know, back off. We're going to do this my way. But there's also this reinforcement of, like, again, like, even like Edric didn't, when he was leaving, he was talking about the gods, and he said to his coffee time, "Hi, Mr. C."
Claire says hello. Yeah, hello. He said hello.
He talks. Hey. He talks about, he says to Davos something like, "May the Father judge you fairly," something like, but in reference to, like, one of the seven. And it's like, if he was really, like, revered Stannis and wanted to stay, you know, did I displease my uncle? I didn't mean to. Maybe that was I worshipping the wrong gods? I didn't mean to. You know, it's there's still that reinforcement there of the new gods that must be something that's kind of jarring with Mel as well. So there's all this kind of, there's these little intricate subplots
Absolutely,
individually that are going on with different characters.
It's
that
great.
I think
It is a very much a character driven arc as well. And Connie in the chat says his poor Mira still awaiting. The description of the sunken face, Stannis, eyes sunk into their sockets, lacking a shadow. Yeah, I love the emoji, Connie. I never noticed that emoji before. Ejaculating Stannis by winning with the woman on the ship. Yes. Oh, emasculating. I see, Connie. Emasculating Stannis by winning with the woman on the ship. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting as well. I feel like, and I'd be interested to know what you guys in the chat think. If Mel's powers, as we find out later, are stronger when she's near the wall, you'd imagine that there'd be a bit of a magical presence at Dragonstone that would contribute to her powers, but at the moment they seem to be dwindling away. I think it says something about the faith in her. I think if you don't have people who have faith in your ability, like Beric has faith in Thoros and all the other guys around them, then maybe your power isn't that strong. But I feel like Stannis's dwindling faith is also emasculating and ejaculating Mel's powers in some way. So we also have Mel failing to see Davos's plan. So yeah.
Sorry, that was a bit of a distraction there. Marwyn decided to start ripping his bed apart, and there was just like loads of fluff everywhere on the floor behind me.
Another job to do now, Claire.
Unbelievable. Why would a dog do that? Why would a dog rip its own bed up? If anyone's a pet psychologist in the chat.
Why would a man kill his own daughter?
I know he's gone back to bed now. I know. Yeah. He's been out for a walk. He's been, yeah.
Danny, you're grand. Don't worry about it. I have no shame at all.
Are they getting you to say words, dear?
No. Anyway, ejaculating probably sounds hilarious in an Irish accent. So yeah, we also have Edric criticizing Stannis for the second time. I think it's the second time in a row, actually, criticizing Stannis's judgment of Davos, saying it was too harsh with the fingers. And Stannis thinking, I bought you onions, which now you have ruined every time he talks about it. I think it's not onions, is it?
It was life somehow. Yeah.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else in Davos 6?
No, well, apart from, this, we're left on this ledge of suspense of the letter coming and what happens next. We still don't know as readers by the end of this chapter whether Davos is going to survive this.
Davos chapters just feel, like you said, they feel gothic. They feel so different because it's coming from somebody who's a genuinely faithful, down-to-earth guy. It kind of shows you how important the faith is for just the ordinary people of Westeros. When you see, he is just an ordinary guy trying to get through it and trying to make the best world for his kids and for the next generation.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we're on to John 8. And John 7 was also a battle scene, and John 8 is a battle scene. So this time it's a bigger battle. And it opens with him dreaming of Winterfell and I'm guessing Greywind. Greywind, right?
Or Summer.
Which of them have yellow eyes? Do they both have yellow eyes?
I think it's Summer who's got yellow eyes. I think it's Summer. Okay. I think so.
I like he comments on it at the beginning of this chapter. His life is exhausting. This is the chapter I kind of went, do you know what? This guy needed to die because if this is the life he needs a day off. Like he'd be better off being a zombie and not like be like Beric, don't need to eat. Like this is what a life. He's in constant pain. It's like I'm knackered. Just listen
I'm gonna
to
get
it.
that. I'm gonna get that on a t-shirt. Be like Beric.
Well, how much easier would it be if you didn't have to sleep or eat? He's just exhausted, and when he sleeps, he doesn't get any relief either. At least when Arya sleeps and Sansa sleeps, they go away and they have a nice war dream. When he sleeps, Ghost is always doing something awful, or he's always being rejected.
It's rare that you can even get any sleep, and when you do, you get these haunting dreams of these creepy crypts, and
I feel.
Oh my God!
I was just like, oh Jesus, John. Like, you know, you might feel that you might actually feel better as a zombie.
There's this uncomfortable feeling in this particular Winterfell dream. I know we've had several with John, but this one seems more uncomfortable than the rest, in that the Stone Kings are saying, "You are no Stark, go away." He feels like this isn't my place. I need to get out of here. He's looking for Ned, and he's looking for Rob, and Benjen. Those three people he's looking for in his dream. And he's got all the kings saying, go away, you know, Stark. Yeah. I mean, that could be his own insecurities, about his own. This is the chapter where we're set up for John being in command.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes to it. He takes to it quite well, actually. He's like rallying the men, he's bolstering them when they're flagging, and you get Donald Noy passing command of the wall to the wall is the wall's yours, and he thinks to himself, the wall is mine, and he thinks about it. John's relationship with the wall, it's almost like it's a sentient being. It's another person, it's another personality. Several times now where he thinks about the wall defending itself. I think it's only John that refers to this notion of the wall defending itself. But a couple of times he mentions that, and he seems to really take to it. And this is setting us up, obviously, for, John doesn't just walk into the command position. There's a lot of groundwork that goes on before then, and like how he dealt with certain command situations, and he's actually doing pretty well considering he's got a bad leg. He's just lost like the love of his life. His short life, but he's just lost the love of his life. He's still thinking about
Grit.
Yeah, well, Ghost is still missing. I mean, this is the part in the TV show where John's coming down in the winch and Ghost appears and helps out in the fight, in the battle, which is epic in the TV show. I loved that episode.
Oh,
this like expanse of the wall. Yeah,
it's different. He comes upon him at Craster's Keep, isn't it? In the TV show, he finds him at Craster's Keep. Don't they go and kill all of the mutineers?
Yeah. But he just appears and kind of he's like battle wolf in that episode. But
by the way, if you want some really regular, good, up-to-date direwolf action, follow the direwolves, the real direwolves, the actual direwolves that they used. They're in Northern Ireland, and their owners constantly update them, and they're so cute. Oh God, they're so gorgeous. Connie has loads of advice for your dog. Ion, I hope you don't mind. I added you as a moderator, so if there's anything that you want to share, you can share if you want to. Any links, channels that we need to know about, or anything like that, please feel free to do so. And thank you for always being amazing and shouting out the chapters we're doing and everything. And thanks to everybody who comes. Connie says, or asks, is Bloodraven sending him dreams or Quaithe? I think it's just maybe he has a touch of green sight. I mean, that would be in a Targaryen bloodline and in a Stark bloodline. If he is Stark or Targaryen, it might even be in a Dane bloodline. Ion, I like it. Yes, of course. Great power comes great responsibility. I think Spider-Man said that, right? So Yeah, he does take command with ease, though. I feel like he owns it. He has the guys laughing. He's exactly the kind of person you want in that situation, and he needs to see it for himself for him to actually take Master Aemon seriously at the end of this. He needs to I think he needs to be able to see it at the end. By the way, Connie, I have no idea. It could be Bloodraven or Quaithe, but I'm guessing he has a little bit of green side. I don't know what you think about that, Claire.
I think the Stark kids have got this warging ability, haven't they? All of them. And this is quite heavy in the next chapter, in Arya's chapter, where she thinks about I mean, God, you've got Nymeria, and there's this very strong connection between Arya and Nymeria around her feeling. It's almost, we'll get to it. But I think John, George R.R. Martin has said that all of the children have got warging abilities. So we know that.
Yeah.
I think that Sansa has this ability to be able to kind of like, she's got this almost like, she's like an empath around certain people, and she can feel what they're feeling. And I think that happens because she wants to try to reach out to, like Lady, she is a warg, but she just hasn't got her counterpart. I think with John, could be, if you look at this with, like, the Stark children in order of age, if the notion is that you're the stronger the warg, the older you are. So if you're an older sibling, and then there's also an argument that John is older than Robb. So John could be the strongest warg out of all of them, and Arya can seem to warg across different continents with her wolf. So there is a strong connection there.
That might be a fun, very far off in the future when everything is settled down for you, a fun live stream debate to do with some people, like everybody take a Stark child and defend the warg. I actually think there's a strong argument to be made for Rickon being a strong warg.
Yeah.
Maybe the strongest warg, since he takes on most of his wolf's personality. But yeah, I mean, what you're saying is totally true as well, especially because of, you've mentioned it before, that he hears Ghost and Ghost doesn't make sound. So how does he hear Ghost when they first find the Dark Horse?
But it could be, and it does seem that the dreams seem to be more vivid when the dreamer in real life is in peril or near death, or like Bran's dreams after his fall, and Arya, well, all of them, they all seem to have these really strong dreams, whether it's a dream about Winterfell and the crypts or whatever, the wolf dreams. They always seem to happen when they're in jeopardy and there's a huge battle going on at the wall. But yeah, it could be Quaithe, it could be Bloodraven, it could be somebody trying to send him a message. I think it's probably more likely just, again, this sense of self and identity and sense of belonging, and where does he, it's just constantly going through his mind. And again, that will amp up even more for somebody like John in these kind of life and death situations.
Also, the older children, I guess, young adults at this stage, seem to have way more symbolic dreams. So Sansa, Jon, Jojen, and Dany, they all seem to have kind of dreams that are very kind of laden with symbolism, maybe even more so than some of the dreams Bran has. Bran's don't seem to, Bran's aren't always that figurative. Maybe it's just the way he describes them, but he seems to warg a lot more when he dreams. Yeah, so his hatred for Mance is really strong here as well. He really, I guess he's building himself up to really hate this guy because he's got to go out and fight them. But the numbers are staggering. The amount of mammoths and the amount of wildlings, they are staggering. Connie says maybe John has the ability to know that the crypt has his name carved in it. Ooh, Connie, very nice. Maybe it has. And Barbara says Sansa seems to be seeing or feeling through birds in a few of her chapters. Yeah, and we'll have that in Arya's chapter as well. We've got crows in Arya's chapter 2. Another thing I wanted to bring up is this is the second time in a row, I forgot to mention it in the Davos chapter, we get a mention of Ice Dragon. An Ice Dragon.
Yes, I wanted to mention that as well.
And in case you don't know, folks, I think I mentioned this in a few chats that I managed to skip in on this weekend. They are in talks for making a movie out of the Ice Dragon book that George R.R. Martin wrote.
Yeah.
So that would be really great.
It's also in this around the same time, kind of in reference to the feeling that Jon gets walking through the tunnel, and that the weight that you get. The only other time that you get this is when Jaime has his dream that he's under Casterly Rock, the one that we discussed recently, where Brienne appears in his dream, and he feels the weight of Casterly Rock above him. This weight of obviously responsibility. His father wants him to be the Lord of Casterly Rock, and he doesn't want to be. And you get the feeling of, again, this weight, this responsibility of the wall. But he talks about it feeling like walking down the gullet of an ice dragon. So is Jon the ice dragon? Is this the weight of responsibility of him taking command? Is there an ice dragon within the wall or underneath the wall? Or is the wall an ice dragon? Like, is there, so, you see, I can't remember what kid's story it was, but it was it looks like you look at a landscape and it looks like hills and mountains, and then it's actually like a massive giant lying down, and it's like, I wonder if that could be the case with the wall, right? But it's like the length of the wall is this massive giant, like the tail of an ice dragon or something is the wall. It's just like, wow, you can really kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole with that.
I've started reading Lovecraft, and there's actually a story that's kind of like that as well. Is this thing alive or not? But yeah, and then we have the horrible scene at the gate with Noy and Mag, and it's just a very sad scene for both sides.
It's awful. Yeah, he was so brave. He was so brave.
All of them, the giants, everybody was just like, wow. It's a lot to and he even remarks, I know after everything he's seen, he says he wish he was Maester Aemon is lucky he's blind, so you never have to see what they've just seen. It's just a horrific scene. It wasn't done too badly in the show, that scene, but it's quite sad here.
But it's like two huge legends from either side. You've got Donal Noy and then Mag the Mighty, and it seemed like they both probably died at around the same time. So Donal Noy sticks his spear in the giant's throat at the same time that the giant's kind of grabbing him and crushing him, and then you just get this scene that's left where it looks like the giant is cradling a baby. It's just and then there are more dead giants outside the wall, and there's just this slush and ice and blood and mess everywhere. It's horrific.
The only thing was my sister's name is Mag, so I was like
Mag the Mighty.
she is pretty mighty, yeah. So but yeah, so that was the only thing that kind of took away the sadness for me a little bit. So that was good. It's good because it's a horrible scene. And of course, Maester Aemon basically says, "You've got to take control now, Jon." And this is the beginning of all the problems for Jon. His problems are just starting. So then we're finally on to what I expect is your favorite chapter of this week. It's certainly mine.
Yes.
I love the Davos chapter, but I think this is such a great chapter. Such a great chapter. Just so many.
Would you say this was the chapter where she becomes no one?
Yeah. But there's also, you got this guy calling for mercy as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the chapter where if we ever get to that debate about the warg strength, this is the chapter where you go, Arya's pretty damn strong as a warg. Really,
she seems to be able to make strong enough to be able to make her wolf do things for her on her behalf. Like, she had the sensation and the feeling that I want to save my mother. I should have gone back to save her. Maybe she's not dead yet. They might have just captured her and thrown her in the dungeons or whatever. She might. I need to go back. And the fact that she was reassured that no, it's okay. My mum's dead. I'm over it, but just I know that now. So it would be a waste of time going back because I know. That was, well, that's pretty strong in itself. That's your proof. If you're in that state of mind of this is my mother, I need to go, and then you have a wolf dream that's like, okay, no, I know what's happened now, so she's dead. There's nothing more that I can do. But just putting that out there into the universe for Arya to kind of, it's more than warging. It's like she's channeling and commanding almost. I need you to reassure me, or at least inform me of what's happened with my mother. And because even Nymeria doesn't know why she's doing this. She doesn't know. This is hard. This is a hard job, dragging a human being out of the river and trying to fend off all your brothers and sisters from having the feast of their life. And so she's doing this because she knows that Arya wants this to be done.
Yeah.
So basically, Arya created Lady Stoneheart.
Well, this is the question, because as Nymeria is dragging her out, there are crows in the trees all around her. And they all disappear, I think, once the men come, but they're all there watching her. They've all arrived to watch this happen. Whether they're just watching it or willing it, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think she says to the Hound, we didn't see her die. I don't believe she's dead. She goes to sleep and basically wills Nymeria to find her. So yeah, I think there's definitely an argument to be made that she does pull her out of the river to save her. Or I don't know. It comes back to that. Do they have a bit of a gift of sight here? Because as she's pulling her out and leaves, the men arrive, and she thinks, as Nymeria, she feels no shame for having done what she's just done. Which to me suggests, why would you be ashamed of that? Is it because you know what's going to happen next? Is it because you know what monster you're going to create? Because the men that are coming, maybe she knows the men that are coming as well. And Arya obviously knows them, but maybe she knows exactly who they are in that dream. It's a very strange line that she feels no shame having done it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just from, you're supposed to leave the Tully to the river. You're not supposed to pull them out. I don't know, but it's a very odd line.
But she says, rise and eat and run with us.
Yes, that's true. She does. Yeah. I think she knows. I think she knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a surprise if they meet later. I think she'll
very
know.
Spooky.
The
Hound doesn't seem to know what the bloody hell to do now, does he? It's like there's a new plan every day. There's a new plan. Like, first new plan, we're going to take you to the Eyrie. Shit, that's not going to work. Right, okay, next plan is we're going to go back to Riverrun and see what your uncle... it's like he's going down the list of relatives of who he can get his... excuse me, who he can get his money from. But she sticks with him. She thinks that he's not even bothering to wrap her up anymore. He's not, it's just like she could kill him.
He arms her.
Yeah. He gives her the dagger. There's this real sense of transformation, I think, from Arya in this chapter. She feels that she's grieving. This is a chapter where Arya is grieving for her Stark identity and her Stark family. She's lost her mother, her father, her siblings, and she's on her own now. And she thinks, she kind of shrugs off, Lisa doesn't know me from Adam, neither does Uncle Brynden the Blackfish. He's not going to even believe that, you know. So she really does feel this sense of, I am all alone, I don't have anybody. Even when, I mean, she's on a real downer here. She's like really grieving, and she's starting to think about, like, even Gendry and Hot Pie, they weren't really friends. They were just there at the time. They weren't really my pack. So she's almost doing what Sansa described in the last chapter as, you know, her skin's getting harder and harder and harder. It was fairly hard to begin with.
Yeah.
But she's just kind of like building this wall up now. And she feels that she's no one, and that she's lost this identity. Yet she had this really strong, but yet she has in this chapter one of the strongest connections with Nymeria through the wolf dreams, which would reinforce your Stark identity. So it's a really difficult one.
It makes her her acquisition of skills within the Faceless Men later all the more believable, because she's been preparing for this role for a long time. I mean, more so than a lot of people, I'm sure, that show up to their door. She even says, you know, like you said, like nobody was her pack. So this is like when, you know, people, you need to stop shipping Arya and Gendry, because she doesn't see them as a part of her pack. She doesn't have the skills to survive alone, which is the big deal. Like the nights where the hound falls asleep before he lights a fire, they're the hardest nights, and they're the nights that she has to stare the hardest, which I thought was an interesting line. You know, I have to stare the hardest those nights. Whatever that means, Arya. Could mean a lot of things, I guess. But yeah, so the hound, Barbara points out, you could tell that it really made the hound sad when Arya told him, never mind, my mum's dead. Yeah, he definitely feels it. But he gets up the following morning and says, listen, what you said about your mom. And she's like, no, it's fine. She's dead. I know, it's fine. Because obviously she's seen the body. And Connie says, like Serial, I didn't see him die in the show. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. She says, you know, she doesn't believe it. And Ian believes that Lady Stoneheart will rise in winds and hunt. Yeah, she's already on the hunt, right? She's already on the hunt in the books, so she'll continue to do that, yeah, for sure. So the other thing that was here, Mark Piper, when they kill Mark Piper, the hound says, Arya wants to know, should they bury him? And the hound says, leave him for the wolves and the wild dogs, our brothers, my brothers and your brothers. You know, we're feeding our packs, basically. There is a lovely little, I mean, it's weird and it's creepy and it's, you know, it has origins in a very violent place, but there is something very special between these two people. And it can't be underestimated at all. What did you think about the little girl in the village that kept following her? Is that supposed to reflect her connection with Nymeria? Nymeria is also a leader of a pack, and so Arya attracts people who want to follow her.
Maybe. I think this is just another example of Arya pushing everyone away and becoming much more insular, and I am no one, and even to the point where, because she tolerated an annoying little girl previously.
It's the second time it's happened, yeah. Actually, it's happened a few times, because you could say that a lot of the boys would follow her too, like Hot Boy.
Yeah. She does seem to. She's an interesting character for other people to want to find out a bit more about. But I just thought that was like, you know, Sandor, the perfect chaperone in this kind of parental role, showing that this is how you kill a man. Heart, you know, it's sort of like strange like life lessons that Arya's getting from the Hound.
That's true, for sure.
And also the reference to the Hound saying, you know, shut up or you'll get sent to the Silent Sisters, where they chop off they chop out a girl's tongue for talking too much, which again makes me think somebody is in the Silent Sisters who talked too much or was sent there, or there's another reference later on in Feast with Wyman Mandley and his niece or granddaughter, whoever it is, you know, who stands up for the Starks and says, no, we can't, any kind of like, she's not in on the show, like the farcical thing that happens with the phrase. I can't remember her name, but he threatens to send her to the Silent Sisters because she's talking too much, you know. And
so Ion says, are you thinking of Shara? I think Joanna Lannister, probably.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Joanna.
Well, it would make sense that the Hound would be familiar with her story, being like a Lannister.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be a Shara. I kind of am on the Septilamore train with the Shara, I have to say. But I'm not sure. Shara, you've kind of thrown a lot into my Shara thoughts now. Thrown them up in the air. Yeah, so the Hound doesn't want to go north to the Wall with Arya. And there's a lot of talk about him having lost the stomach for fighting and all that kind of thing. But he says that he has a brother too at the end. So is it just that he wants to get revenge on Gregor? He doesn't want to go any further away from him? Is that what he's referencing there, or?
Yeah, I think so. It's the pre-show for Clegane Bowl, isn't it?
Oh, Ion has a great theory. My Joanna crackpot is that her soul is living in the wild weirwood in a cave underneath the rock. That's how Joanna was able to reach Sir Jaime in his dream when his head was resting on the weirwood stump. That's a great theory. I like it. I also like the fact that you gave Jaime his respectful title of Sir. Ion, always the gentleman. So this is a great chapter for me. Is there anything else then that you picked up on this?
No, I don't think so. Just lots of grief, very visceral. Again, you know, death and blood, the scent, the fact that Nymeria is picking up Kat's familiar scent, even though she's dead, and she's kind of, you know, that she's drawn to this like figure that's floating in the water, that even though she can only smell death and blood, it's just very, just this, it's weird. There's very strong connection, but there's also this real visceral feel to it as well. And
I mean, George R.R. Martin's description of grief from the point of view of a child is brilliant. It's like, you know, this whole, the hollowness, the emptiness where her heart used to be. It's like, you can't describe what's going on. Like, it's a physical sensation for her. It's really...
But she takes comfort in the wolf dreams. It's almost like that's the only part of a day when she gets some sleep and she can kind of slip into these wolf dreams. And there's nothing about it that seems weird to her. Like, I'm having these really weird dreams where I'm a wolf. What the fuck is that about? You know, it seems to be something that's like comfortable and natural. She can kind of let out her anger about her grief by like baring her teeth to the smaller wolves in the pack. But also she's describing Nymeria as having this fur that keeps her warm. So there's this like so she's basically extending her grieving through her dream state as well, and through into Nymeria. Nymeria picks up on that and feels it, and it almost looks like Arya's directing her to kind of like, you know, answer this question for me. What happened to my mother? Well, here you go. This is what happened. Okay, well, I now know, you know, I need to move on from that. But again, it's this overbearing, dark feeling of grief and abandonment and just feeling alone. I think she's part of her is just kind of given up at this point.
Yeah. Ian said that the theory about Joanna came to him while reading The World of Ice and Fire when they described the wild weirwood at the rock. Yeah, it's that's a great theory. Yeah. That is a really great theory, and I haven't heard it before, so yeah, it's really good. So that's it for me, unless you have anything else. Next week we are Tyrion 9 to Dany 6, so we have 3 weeks of a Storm of Swords left, and then we might take a little bit of a break to give Clare a chance to catch us up. So only 3 weeks left on this channel. I'll be moving over to my other channel, which is linked down below. AU is linked down below. Bran is linked down below. Clare is always linked, and all the playlists are linked as well. Okay, that's it, Clare. Yeah, for this week.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody who joined us. And I will talk to you all next week. Bye, Clare. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.